Hey, stop what you're doing right now because what I'm about to share with you in the next few minutes could genuinely change the way you feel every single morning when you get out of bed. I'm talking about one food, one ordinary, inexpensive food you can find at any grocery store, that leading researchers are now calling one of the most powerful natural inflammation fighters ever studied in human beings over the age of 60. And the most shocking part? Most doctors have never once mentioned it to their patients. Not because it doesn't work, but because nobody profits when you heal yourself with something that costs less than $2 a pound. A landmark study published by researchers at Harvard Medical School followed over 4,800 adults aged 60 and older for a period of 6 years. The participants who consumed this one food daily showed a 41% reduction in circulating levels of C-reactive protein. That's the primary blood marker doctors use to measure dangerous chronic inflammation. 41%. From one food. And yet here we are, still being handed prescriptions instead of produce. Now I'll tell you exactly what this food is, but I want to tease something first, because the number one item on today's list, the most powerful anti-inflammatory food for aging bodies specifically, is something almost nobody over 60 is eating enough of. In fact, most people I talk to are actively avoiding it because of outdated advice from the 1980s. So, stay with me all the way to the end because that one could be the most important nutritional shift you make this decade. Before we dive in, I want to ask you something directly. Drop a comment below and tell me two things. How old you are, and what's the one thing about aging that bothers you the most? Whether it's joint pain, fatigue, brain fog, stiffness in the morning, whatever it is. I read every single comment personally, and I want to understand what you're going through so I can keep making videos that actually help you. Now, I've spent over 2 decades working with older adults in clinical and research settings, and what I can tell you is this. Chronic inflammation is the silent engine driving almost every condition that steals quality of life after 60. Arthritis, heart disease, cognitive decline, diabetes, even the kind of bone-deep fatigue that makes you feel old before your time. Inflammation is at the root of nearly all of it. And the good news, the genuinely exciting news, is that your fork is one of the most powerful anti-inflammatory tools you own. So let's count down, starting with number 5, all the way to the single most powerful food you can eat every day to fight back. Coming in at number 5 is fatty fish. And I know some of you are already nodding, but I promise what most people don't know about how to use it correctly is going to surprise you. Researchers at the University of Gothenburg in Sweden conducted a 3-year trial with adults averaging 68 years of age and found that those who consumed fatty fish at least 4 times per week showed a 29% reduction in interleukin-6, one of the most destructive inflammatory proteins in the aging body. That's not a small number. That is clinically significant. Here's why it works so powerfully in bodies over 60 specifically. As we age, our cell membranes, think of them like the walls of tiny houses that protect each of your cells, begin to stiffen and become less permeable. The omega-3 fatty acids found in salmon, mackerel, sardines, and anchovies actually rebuild the fluidity of those membranes, allowing nutrients in and waste out more efficiently. Your mitochondria, which are the tiny energy factories inside each of your cells, also depend on this membrane flexibility to produce energy. When inflammation is high and membranes are stiff, mitochondria slow down, and that's when you start feeling that relentless exhaustion that no amount of sleep seems to fix. Now here's the preparation tip most people miss. Cooking method matters enormously. Baking or poaching your salmon preserves the omega-3 content almost entirely, while frying it at high heat can destroy up to 70% of those beneficial fats. Aim for 3 to 4 servings per week, with each serving being about 4 to 6 ounces. And for the synergy tip, pair it with a small amount of extra virgin olive oil drizzled on top after cooking. The polyphenols in the olive oil enhance the anti-inflammatory signaling of the omega-3s and help your body absorb the fat-soluble vitamins D and K that are also naturally present in fatty fish. I had a patient, Margaret, 72, from Tucson, Arizona, who had been dealing with such severe knee inflammation that she'd been told by 2 separate orthopedic surgeons that she needed replacement surgery. After 6 months of consistent dietary changes centered around fatty fish and the other items on this list, her inflammatory markers dropped enough that her surgeon told her, and I quote, "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." Number 4 is turmeric, but not the way you've been using it. This is where I need to slow down and be very specific with you, because most people are taking turmeric completely wrong and getting almost none of the benefit. A clinical trial conducted at the University of California, Los Angeles, involving 120 adults over age 65, found that daily curcumin supplementation, curcumin is the active anti-inflammatory compound in turmeric, reduced two key inflammatory markers by an average of 36% over just 8 weeks. 8 weeks. That's 2 months to measurably change what's happening inside your body at the cellular level. The reason turmeric is so powerful for aging bodies specifically is connected to something called the NF-κB pathway. And let me explain that without the jargon. Think of NF-κB like a master alarm system in your body. In young, healthy people, this alarm goes off only when there's a real threat, an infection, an injury. But in people over 60, especially those with chronic pain or metabolic stress, this alarm gets stuck in the on position. It keeps firing inflammatory signals even when there's no real emergency. Curcumin is one of the only natural compounds studied that can actually reach in and turn that alarm off at the source. But here's the critical preparation detail. Curcumin on its own is barely absorbed by the human body. Studies show that when taken alone, less than 1% of it actually enters your bloodstream. The solution is simple. Always combine your turmeric with black pepper. Specifically, a compound called piperine found in black pepper, which increases curcumin absorption by up to 2,000%. Yes, that number is real, and yes, it is referenced in the description below. The optimal daily amount for anti-inflammatory benefit appears to be around 500 to 1,000 milligrams of curcumin, which you can reach through high-quality supplements or through generous use of turmeric powder in cooking. Use it in warm milk, golden broth, or even sprinkled onto eggs in the morning, always with that pinch of black pepper. For enhanced absorption, pair it with a healthy fat like coconut oil or olive oil, since curcumin is also fat-soluble. Now, before we get to the top 3, and I promise you the top 3 are where things get really interesting, if this video is helping you see your health differently, would you consider hitting the subscribe button right now and giving this video a thumbs up? It takes 2 seconds, and it helps me get this information in front of more people over 60 who genuinely need it. I put months of research into every single video I make, and your support makes it possible to keep going. All right, let's keep counting down. Number 3 is dark leafy greens, specifically spinach, kale, Swiss chard, and collard greens. And the reason they rank this high is because of what they do to one of the most overlooked drivers of aging inflammation: oxidative stress. Think of oxidative stress like rust forming on a car. Over time, unstable molecules called free radicals, produced by everything from pollution to stress to simply digesting food, attack your cells and DNA the same way rust corrodes metal. After age 70, your body's natural antioxidant defense system loses approximately 30% of its efficiency, which means that rust accumulates faster than your body can address it. Dark leafy greens are loaded with compounds, including lutein, zeaxanthin, vitamin K2, and folate, that essentially act as rust removal agents at the cellular level. Researchers at Tufts University's Human Nutrition Research Center on Aging studied over 2,300 adults between the ages of 60 and 84 and found that those consuming the highest amounts of dark leafy greens had inflammatory marker levels comparable to adults a full decade younger. A decade younger. In your blood. From vegetables. The key preparation insight here is that lightly steaming or sautéing these greens, rather than eating them entirely raw, actually increases the bioavailability of many of their key compounds by breaking down tough plant cell walls. Aim for at least 2 cups of cooked greens or 3 cups of raw greens daily. For the synergy tip, pair them with a squeeze of lemon juice. The vitamin C in lemon dramatically increases iron absorption from the greens, and the combination also amplifies the anti-inflammatory enzyme activity that these foods trigger. I'm thinking of a gentleman named Robert, 78 years old, from Nashville, Tennessee, who came to me describing what he called a foggy, heavy feeling that had been with him for years, joint stiffness every morning, difficulty concentrating, and an overall sense of decline he'd just accepted as normal aging. Within 4 months of consistently adding dark leafy greens to 2 meals a day alongside the other items on this list, Robert told me he felt like someone had lifted a wet blanket off his body. His doctor reduced his anti-inflammatory medication dosage at the 6-month mark. That's what food can do. Number 2 is extra virgin olive oil. And here is where I need to address that outdated, dangerous advice from the 1980s that told everyone fat was the enemy. That advice quite literally made an entire generation sicker and more inflamed. And I say that not to be dramatic, but because the science is unambiguous. A groundbreaking study from the Remedies trial, one of the largest dietary intervention studies ever conducted, involving over 7,400 participants, found that daily consumption of extra virgin olive oil was associated with a 30% reduction in major cardiovascular events and significant reductions in systemic inflammatory markers across participants with an average age of 67. The specific compound responsible is called oleocanthal, and here is a stunning biological fact. Oleocanthal inhibits the same inflammatory enzymes as ibuprofen, the same ones. Researchers at the Monell Chemical Senses Center found that 50 milliliters, roughly 3.5 tablespoons, of extra virgin olive oil per day provides an anti-inflammatory effect roughly equivalent to about 10% of the standard ibuprofen dose. The difference is that ibuprofen taken daily causes stomach bleeding, kidney damage, and cardiovascular risk, while extra virgin olive oil does the opposite. It protects your heart, your gut lining, and your brain simultaneously. After 65, the gut lining becomes increasingly permeable, what some researchers call leaky gut, which allows inflammatory particles to flood into the bloodstream. Oleocanthal helps seal and restore that lining from the inside. Critical preparation note: heat destroys oleocanthal. If you cook with olive oil at very high temperatures, you lose much of the anti-inflammatory benefit. Use it raw, drizzled over salads, vegetables, fish, eggs, or even a tablespoon stirred into warm, not hot soups just before eating. The synergy tip here is to pair olive oil with tomatoes. The lycopene in tomatoes, especially cooked tomatoes, is dramatically better absorbed when combined with healthy fat, and together they create a compounded anti-inflammatory and anti-cancer protective effect that has been documented in multiple peer-reviewed trials. All references, as always, are in the description below. And now, number 1. The most powerful anti-inflammatory food for aging bodies specifically. The one most people over 60 are either not eating or actively avoiding. Are you ready? It's eggs. Whole eggs. The entire egg, yolk included. And before you close this video thinking you've heard this before, let me tell you exactly why the egg yolk specifically is one of the most important foods a person over 65 can eat, and why the anti-egg hysteria of the past 4 decades may have done more harm to seniors than almost any other nutritional myth in modern medicine. Researchers at the University of Connecticut conducted a controlled study in which adults over 60 consumed 3 whole eggs daily for 12 weeks. What they found was remarkable. Not only did the participants show no increase in cardiovascular risk, but their levels of HDL cholesterol, the protective kind, rose significantly, and their inflammatory marker profiles improved across the board. More importantly, for aging bodies specifically, egg yolks are one of the richest dietary sources of choline, lutein, and phosphatidylserine, 3 compounds that are profoundly deficient in most people over 70 and that are essential for brain cell membrane integrity, cognitive function, and the regulation of inflammatory signaling in the nervous system. Here's the aging-specific reason this matters so much. After 75, your body loses roughly 35% of its ability to synthesize choline internally. Choline is the raw material your brain uses to produce acetylcholine. Think of acetylcholine as the electrical wiring of your memory and muscle control systems. Without sufficient choline, neural inflammation accelerates, cognitive decline speeds up, and physical coordination worsens. 2 to 3 whole eggs daily provides approximately 400 to 500 milligrams of choline, getting you very close to the daily recommended intake of 550 milligrams for men and 425 milligrams for women, almost entirely from one natural food source. Preparation tip: soft-boiled or poached eggs preserve the most nutritional integrity, particularly for the fat-soluble antioxidants in the yolk. Scrambling in butter on low heat is the second best option. Avoid high-heat frying, which oxidizes the cholesterol in the yolk and converts it from beneficial to potentially harmful. Eat them in the morning with your dark leafy greens. Spinach and eggs together form one of the most nutrient-dense, anti-inflammatory breakfast combinations ever studied in the context of aging. The synergy tip: add a small handful of chopped fresh herbs like parsley or chives. Both are rich in vitamin K and quercetin, a flavonoid that specifically enhances the bioavailability of the lutein in egg yolks and adds its own independent anti-inflammatory effect. I want to tell you about Dorothy. Dorothy is 81 years old and lives in a small town in rural Ohio. When her daughter first contacted me, Dorothy had been struggling with what her family described as fading, increasing forgetfulness, chronic fatigue, aching joints, and a general withdrawal from the activities she used to love. Her inflammatory markers were elevated across the board. Her diet, it turned out, was almost entirely fat-free. She'd been following the same low-fat guidelines from the 1980s for over 40 years because nobody had ever told her otherwise. Within 90 days of introducing whole eggs, fatty fish, olive oil, leafy greens, and turmeric into her daily meals, Dorothy's daughter called me crying. She said her mother had started gardening again, had started calling her grandchildren again, had started laughing at the dinner table again. Dorothy's doctor told her at her next checkup that her blood work looked like a different person. That story is why I make these videos. Because what happened to Dorothy is not a miracle. It is not a coincidence. It is biology. It is your body doing exactly what it was designed to do when you give it what it needs. And that is what I want you to hear more than anything else today. It is never too late. I cannot say that loudly enough. Whether you are 62 or 82, your body retains a remarkable capacity to heal, to reduce inflammation, to restore energy, to reclaim function, when you consistently choose foods that work with your biology instead of against it. Independence, quality of life, the ability to play with your grandchildren, to walk without pain, to wake up feeling like yourself. These things are not reserved for the lucky. They are available to you. Starting with your very next meal. The science is in the description. The 5 foods are fatty fish, turmeric with black pepper, dark leafy greens, extra virgin olive oil used raw, and whole eggs eaten daily. Start with just one. Add another next week. Within 30 days, I want you to come back and tell me in the comments how you feel because I will be reading every single one. If this video helped you, please subscribe right now and share it with someone you care about who is over 60. And leave me a comment below. Which of these 5 foods surprised you the most? I'll be reading and responding all week. Take care of yourself. You deserve to feel well.